It's Dr. Joe Congeni on board with us right now. Good morning, Joe.
Hey, Ray. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Doing well.
Good.
Didn't get much of a flu out there in Arizona. A lot of the Indians players were getting knocked down in that clubhouse by that flu.
Oh, my gosh. Well, you know, I just heard the statement you just said, and it's very comforting as fans to know we have the best as our manager. So having you guys getting a chance to listen and learn from Tito and then pass it on to us. And then we're all really lucky in Akron, Ohio, that we have the best person to disseminate, to pass out that information in Ray Horner.
Oh, boy, that $10 goes a long way,
come on,
doesn't
Ray. Now, I heard this from somebody else yesterday because I spoke about, what I want to talk about today. I always check in every so often with the Ohio High School Athletic Association, and I had a nice talk with Tim Street, and he, of course, said, say hello to Ray, and but we had a couple topics that we discussed, and one of which that I want to kind of explain is a little change in the last 5 or 10 years in the sports medicine world. And that is, he was telling me about another inspiring story of a young man whose life was saved a couple of weeks ago, less than a month ago, Ray, an Ohio University wrestler who had his heart stop and actually had the use of a defibrillator, an AED, done twice on his heart on the mat, which saved this young man, and from everything I understand, he's doing really well right now. And so what Tim and I discussed is some of the new approach a few years ago was, at about this time of year, a little bit later than this, you and I usually discuss, hey, doing sports physicals and trying to look for all those things going on with shoulder problems and ankle problems and other issues that people have. But one of those things is also what I call looking for a needle in a haystack, is trying to find those kids that might have a heart problem that could put them at-risk athletes for heart problems while they're playing sports. And it's very hard to pick up at the time of a physical. And even if we did EKGs and echoes and fancy expensive tests on everybody who played sport, we still may not pick up all these heart problems. And so part of the new approach about 5 or 10 years ago is still doing our best on the front end, Ray, to try to pick up this needle in a haystack kids that are at risk with heart problems when they're playing sport. It's a small number, but when it happens and we lose a kid, it's a big deal. So also on the back end, trying to have as many defibrillators, or the easy-to-use defibrillators are called AEDs. We've had them for a long time. Having them in as many sites as we possibly can, so that if we run into one of these situations that we're able to restart the heart of these kids, and it's often life-saving, and then they're back on their way, and we can fix whatever the problem was beforehand, or we know what the problem is. But AEDs are really, really important, and it reminds me that another friend of yours, we started working much more closely this year with the Akron Public Schools, and the athletic director. We met with Joe, of course, the last couple of years, and Joe was really committed to this issue. But at places like Akron Public Schools, the kids may practice at many more than one venue. It's not all in one gym or all at one site, and kids practice in a lot of different places. And to have an AED at all these sites, let alone trying to have certified athletic trainers. So we are using some of our certified athletic trainers, and our young trainers in the Akron Public Schools are doing a great job, and they're working with Joe and his team, and they did a great job. But when they got there, they found very few AEDs, if any, around in a lot of the schools, not many. And I want to just shout out to a couple people. One is there were some people from the AED companies who loaned us AEDs for the first few weeks and months while we were trying to get enough AEDs for the schools. And that was awesome, and everybody kind of pulls together at these times, and it made me sleep a little bit easier over this time, because when we first got there, no AEDs at all. And then in the meantime, Joe and our supervisor of trainers, Sheila Schrack, found AEDs for I believe now all of these different venues where the kids in Akron Public play sports, and that the more AEDs we can have out there, the more saves we have, like this kid from OU who was wrestling, like the young man from Revere a couple years ago out on the track. There's now hundreds of cases a year of lives that are saved in the sporting world because people have these easy-to-use defibrillators. But remember just a couple key points before I'm done. I'm exhorting people at rural schools, suburban schools, city schools, check your AEDs. Make sure you have those in all the venues where kids play sports, number one. Number two, make sure there is somebody who is in charge of checking them regularly so the batteries don't go dead. They're ready to be used when they're needed. And make sure that somebody is teaching as many coaches and teachers as possible how to use these. Because here's a place, Ray, where we've been able to go to the point now in the last few years and save hundreds of lives in this country of kids who otherwise before that, we'd lose. And so it's really been a big deal.
Yeah, and I remember Dr. Terry Gordon really leading a big charge on this as well. And like you said, Joe, wasn't too long ago, there were 0 AEDs in these schools, and now almost on every floor, every school, you're seeing the AED product. You
are right to bring up another hero in Terry Gordon, and many around town that really, I'll use the phrase, jump-started this whole thing and got us going. And now things are a lot better, but we've got to continue to do our due diligence and save lives. And it's a two-pronged attack, trying to find those kids up front that might have an issue that puts them at risk, and then trying to have AEDs at every site where they may play a sport so that we can save them in the case of one of these really rare problems.
Good stuff, Joe. Thanks for joining us again and the kind words, my friend. We'll catch up with you next week.
Great having you back in town, Ray. Thanks.
All right. Dr. Joe Congeni, Sports Medicine Center, Akron Children's Hospital.